Monday Mornings with Matt and Kevin.
Welcome into Monday Mornings with Matt and Kevin here on the Catholic Family Podcast.
These two will debate real-life issues from a Catholic perspective every Monday at 9 Eastern. Topics that come up around the dinner table will be given the truth treatment with no punches held and no falsehood left standing. Sit back, relax, grab your cup of coffee, and enjoy the show. Here are your hosts, Matt and Kevin.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome into Monday Mornings with Matt and Kevin here on the Catholic Family Podcast. You know, I have decided that I believe in climate change. It was warm yesterday and now it's cold today. And I think that I have just accompanied myself and totally developed into the position. I'm tired of this. I was feeling good. The weather was good. The seasons were kind of coming around. The trees were blooming, and now I'm sitting here stuffy with a little scratchy throat. So the things we do to put out this podcast, Kevin, the things we go through.
It's a great sacrifice.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's an amazing sacrifice. So,
amen to that. One of us is always sick, right?
One of us is always sick. I know. Hopefully mine isn't as lengthy, though.
True.
Isn't as lengthy though as yours, so we might keep this a little bit shorter than usual. But I kind of wanted to start off the show today, Kev, with a little update for our listeners. One of the very first either shows we did together or podcasts we did together, or interviews or whatever it might have been. I think it was late September last year. We had a guest on, very popular on Twitter, Miles Rutledge, Lord Miles Rutledge, he calls himself on Twitter. He was or is a thrill seeker times 20, right? The guy has been in Afghanistan when they fell to the Taliban. He went to the battlefields of Ukraine. He was in Sudan and other crazy adventures that he's kind of documented for himself. And we learned about, I would say towards the end of February, I think it was, that he was actually captured by Taliban secret police, and this one wasn't a joke anymore, right? And so, you know, I didn't bring anything up because the guy had a outlandish adventure every other week, right? So I mean, we didn't need case by case updates, but a little bit more serious now. So I did want to bring it up. He had written to me actually end of January, early February, around that time, asking to come on the show again. He's a devout Catholic. He prays the rosary daily, and he has brought, the faith to some parts of Afghanistan and Sudan and other parts that probably would never hear the faith. So he certainly brought he certainly proselytized to the dismay of Bergoglio. But we have heard that he and two other British men are being held captive, being accused of spying. And obviously, to these people out there, this isn't so funny and this isn't worth, vlogging and making Twitter posts about, or YouTube videos on, So I wanted to bring it up because there have been reports lately. And of course, I know nothing more than what Twitter feed shows me, but that he may be set for public execution. And I don't know how true that is. Some outlets are reporting various things, but if you Google his name, those headlines do come up. So we did want to offer some prayers, just ask our listeners for prayers for his safety. I remember our interviews on here, so if people want to go back and look, it's up here on your feed, Kevin. And I remember asking him a while ago, like, do you get scared? Like, I asked him in the video, in the interview that we did, like, does it make you nervous? Like, do you actually get intimidated by these things? Because, there are things that nobody really has ever done before. And he said, yeah, of course, absolutely. I get very nervous. I just like anybody else, I feel fear. I feel emotion. Just what you would expect. But I know that he would bring crucifixes with him, rosaries, holy water, and bring news of the gospel, at least to parts of the world that would never really hear it, especially without internet access out there. So I just wanted to start off with that update, and hopefully we hear good news. But he made it his legacy.
Well, it's pretty interesting. It made me think, and definitely, yeah. I mean, hopefully it's not as bad as it sounds, but we should definitely pray for him. But I think it's something that kind of struck me because I was talking to my wife about it, and I was kind of like, yeah, I think he's kind of a thrill seeker. And to be honest, when you lead that kind of life, you probably are at least somewhat prepared for that kind of death. I mean, that just
Yes.
kind of comes
Yes.
with the territory. But
Yeah.
what's interesting? At some point in the conversation, I was kind of like, yeah, I think that's pretty crazy. It's a pretty silly thing to do. And I thought about it for a second. It's like, I bet you that's what a lot of people said about the martyrs who went, who went and tried to convert these tribes and got their heads cut off and stuff. I bet you a lot of their friends were saying that's pretty silly. That's not a very smart thing to do. And I think in a way, in an earthly way, at least it's not. And so if Miles, especially if that was his primary intention, then I mean, good on him. I mean, that's something that most
Yeah.
people would not have the guts to do. I mean, and even as a side thing, I mean, if you're a thrill seeker, that's your primary goal, but a secondary is bringing Christ. I mean, that's
Yeah.
respectable.
If people want to bring up our interview from I think it was September, like I said, I asked him, like, how did the Taliban, funny question you would ask somebody, how would the Taliban perceive you as being a Catholic? I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe Miles was a frequent of the SSPX chapels in England. But how do they perceive you as being, a Catholic or whatnot? And he was not afraid to share his faith and to make that known. So as you said, certainly more guts on him than a lot of people. So we certainly pray for his safety. But I did want to bring up, Kevin, a totally different topic as we kind of move on briefly today. A little bit of shakeup in the political world, and I'll read some headlines and then I'm curious your thoughts. So Joe Biden officially has a challenge, which shouldn't
Wait,
be
in
too
his brain
difficult.
or against him? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I know
The
he is
many
challenged.
challenges of
He
Joe
is
Biden.
challenged, but you're saying
Yes.
someone else is challenging him. Okay, got it.
Yes. So a member of the American political dynasty Kennedy family has thrown his hat into the race. And I have some very interesting headlines that I wanted to kind of bring up and share with listeners and get their thoughts, because he has that little D, after his name, Democrat. But a lot of the points that he's made and a lot of the things that he said don't really fit in line with the Pelosi, Biden, Obama, Clinton type of party. So yeah, he announced his candidacy, Bobby Kennedy Jr., son of Senator Robert Kennedy, who was the brother of President Kennedy. They were all obviously assassinated, but this is a headline here that I wanted to share, because he is really known, Bobby Kennedy Jr., for his anti-vaccine campaign, which already is an eye-opener, if you think about the Democrats. And I wanted to read some snippets. So Bobby Kennedy Jr. is the chairman of Children's Health Defense, an advocacy group founded in 2016. And the group, listen to this, the group alleges a large proportion of American children suffer from autism, ADHD, food allergies, cancer, autoimmune diseases, and others due to an exposure to certain chemicals and radiation found in our air. His organization here has blamed and campaigned against childhood vaccines, fluoride in drinking water, Tylenol, aluminum, Wi-Fi, and others. And he has been identified as one of the two major buyers of anti-vaccine Facebook advertisements in late 2018 and early 2019. And then here's the real thrill here. During the COVID-19 pandemic, so this is like his thing anyway, right? This is before COVID was an event. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Kennedy promoted multiple conspiracy theories related to COVID-19, including claims that Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates were trying to simply profit off a vaccine, and suggesting that Bill Gates would cut off access to money of people who did not get vaccinated, allowing them to starve. Does this sound like a prominent Democrat politician? Do you?
No, I would
No.
say not. He's an interesting guy. He's I mean, I don't follow him that closely, but I know part of what
Same.
sticks out to him is his lack of a voice. Yeah, I think he has a damaged voice
does.
box, and so he talks like
He talks. He does talk.
So it's kind of hard to listen to him speak.
Yeah.
It's kinda like, but when you listen to him speak, he has a lot of good things to say about this type of stuff, and it's a really interesting thing. And this, and you're really starting to go down quote unquote conspiracy theory lane when you're talking about these health issues. But I think that it's how do I say it? It's one of those things you're going to have people on both sides. You're going to have people who hear that and say that's lunacy. And you have people who say that's not far enough. We both know that's the case, and I think that when it comes to this type of argument, stepping away real quickly from his running at all, I mean,
sure.
I think that the biggest thing for me is to not. It's not going down each rabbit hole. It's not understanding, not saying, hey, aluminum is going to kill you. I think the biggest thing for me is just the awareness of reality, the reality that our politicians don't care about us. The pharmaceutical companies hate us. I mean, all these different things that no one is out to save us or to help us. And so this idea of trust,
Yes.
that's what bothers me. Again, if you want to go, if you believe in vaccines and stuff, that's, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. Go ahead. My issue is this. Hello, it's made by scientists. What do of course you take it. Scientists made it. It's like, well, really? I don't think that's how logic works. I mean, sure, if you want it, if that's your risk, then take it. But don't tell me that that's the only way to go.
Yeah, and he continued. This was just the tipping point here. He wrote a book, came out in November 2021, called "The Real Anthony Fauci: Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the War on Public Health." Kennedy called Fauci a powerful technocrat who helped orchestrate and execute a big. I lost my place here. Sorry. He claims Fauci and Bill Gates plan to promote and prolong the pandemic and exaggerate its effects to promote their expensive vaccines. I mean, these are things that are really just eye-opening and it kind of take a little bit of shift. This is from Twitter. So the next point here I got from Twitter, and I want to emphasize, regardless of your beliefs or political positions or whatever, this is from a Democrat in 2022. Kennedy tweeted on April 19th, you can go to his page, quote, "We have a government today that is scared of the people. If people want to protect the Constitution, they should vote for me. If people think that the Bill of Rights is still relevant, they need to vote for me. I believe in a government as little as possible, and we need to be on the side of the little guy, not just Wall Street and big corporations." That was his end quote. That was his a tweet that he made. So what can I say? The little conspiracy theory in me raises an eyebrow when I hear these things coming from anybody, especially Democrat, because it's like, what are they trying to fool us with here? People can lie about anything, but I thought that these pieces were at least worth something to bring up and have a conversation over, because this isn't mainstream liberalism today at all. I mean, little government, the Bill of Rights. I mean, the Second Amendment, obviously, and then him saying, I believe in as little government as possible, regardless of even your opinion on that, right? We've kind of shifted a bit from a republic being a little government to maybe a Catholic monarchy. Or do you want a little government if it's a Catholic monarchy? I don't know, but still, talking points to bring up. Now, how far do I think he'll go? I don't know. He's seen some polls show him doing decently, probably because of his name, very obviously a prominent name in American history, but it should be easy to unseat Biden. but an interesting name to have thrown in the race. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, I think that side is, their fights doesn't sound like fights he wants. The fights he wants to fight does not sound like the fights that his base are going to support. But maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I mean, I think it's an interesting thing with the Kennedys, because I've looked a bit into them. Now, I haven't done a lot of research, but I've looked a bit into them. I've read a lot about Vietnam and these types of things, and I think that I think that the Kennedys were very flawed people. I think they're kind of mafia. They were not your good, well-behaved Catholic boys. But what I think they were, from just purely my opinion of them, was they were kind of an actual, like, almost like a dynastic family of America. Like, they were American,
like the Romanovs or something.
Yeah, they were America's family, and they. I think they really loved America. All their faults, and they had not always good politics. They weren't always moral, but I think that they actually did love, America and what it stood for, and actually were willing to fight for that. And you see, as you said, also willing to die for it. Maybe not willing, but they did die for it. And I think that, it's interesting, like JFK, he was assassinated very shortly after coming out against the banks, against the Fed.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's a coincidence. And so, I think that's an interesting thing that I don't know this guy well, but I like what I've heard from him. And I like the Kennedy family because it's the closest thing in America that we have to royalty. Tell me I'm wrong. I think that's the case.
It totally is. And what's not only that, but a lot of them, both men and women in that family, are very attractive. And I think it means something on the world stage, right? When your leaders are young,
Obama.
Catholic, and
Well,
right.
okay,
Oh,
wasn't
totally.
Catholic, but I'm just
Totally.
saying,
No,
just
I
in
know.
terms of
Right.
charisma. Phew.
Right. It absolutely carries some weight. I mean,
Yeah.
you can have, and people actually said this, about numerous people in the past. They may not have been the smartest or the brightest or the most polished candidate, but they were attractive, they were charismatic, and they weren't 85 years old like most of these people are nowadays. And they were extremely influential, and they did well even on the global stage, because imagine, like, I don't know, I'm just going to pick here. Imagine sitting down with leaders in any European country, right? Regardless of the content you bring, if you are young, again, these three words: young, attractive, charismatic, you're going to be treated differently. And I think the way you're approached, the way you're negotiated with, the way you're perceived, isn't, regardless of a word that comes out of your mouth yet, is going to be kind of seen through a different lens. And I think a lot of the people in the Kennedy family bring this, like, to the table. As you said, they were kind of America's dynasty family.
Well, and just think about it too. I think it goes back to really a natural way of thinking about it. That you know, when you see, we used to be clans, that warred with each other for thousands of years. I mean, and usually your leaders would have been probably your biggest, strongest guys. And maybe the most attractive, maybe the one who had the most kids, whatever it was. And I think that being virile was definitely part of that. And when you see someone like Biden or Trump, for that matter, Trump is certainly in better
Sure.
shape than Biden, but I think you automatically kind of scorn them in a way. And I mean, because there's one thing with the old wise, person, which obviously adds something, but I do think you're totally right. You get a whole different dynamic when you have that energetic leader. And again, we totally saw it with Obama. Now, Obama, with actually what he actually did was terrible, of course, but I totally understand why Obama was voted in twice. Totally. 100%.
Same thing with Bill Clinton.
Biden wasn't voted in twice, but wasn't voted in at all. But yeah, Clinton too. Good point. That's exactly right. And I think that, in George, the Bushes, they're also kind of your dynasty family. I think more immoral than the Kennedys even, but that's also kind of makes sense why that happened as well. But no, it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see what happens. I think that 2024 is going to be wild. I mean, wild.
It's close. It's close.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild.
I just think one last point here to before we kind of go to our final topic, but Trump has really been two things. He's been campaigning a bit more to the left than he was in 2016, and he has done nothing but hammer DeSantis, and I'm not quite sure why. I think he should totally shift his narrative here, because if you look at some of the things he said in either his, whatever, it's not Twitter, I forget what platform he uses now, but on there, True Social, right, on there, in some speeches, I mean, he is just destroying the job that he thinks DeSantis is doing, turning Florida into a dump, prices through the roof there, which maybe some points are true. I know Florida is a bit expensive, but I don't think that's his winning strategy at all. And he has spent DeSantis didn't even announce a candidacy yet. I think Trump is so popular still, and has such a great message in a lot of ways still, that he needs to focus on, and he doesn't have to trash anybody. I don't think, I think he's got to keep in his lane, stick to what was successful for him. I don't know about the name calling. It's funny, but it worked in a lot of ways, but I think he needs to give the message that American people want to hear. They don't want to hear him bash DeSantis. People like both, right? And I think he's got to shift that.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm really curious. Curious to see what happens. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be a crazy year. It will. We're gonna have plenty of chats to talk about what's going on.
Just when I've said it couldn't get any wild, I thought McCain, Palin, Obama. I thought that was wild. Little did we know what was coming. So, really quick, I wanted to read a little bit about Jacinta and Lucia of Fatima, because I came across this article the other day, and it really opened my eyes to how rigid the saints were, how much the saints did not tolerate much at all, right? They didn't let things slide. And there's a brief conversation that's recorded here between Jacinta and Lucia, who was, I believe, done away with in 58-ish, by the way, but different story. So remember too, these kids were like 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, right? And they had this insight. Here's the little snippet. Wondering what causes people to go to hell, Jacinta asked her cousin, Lucia. Lucia answered, perhaps not going to mass on Sundays,
Oh.
stealing, saying wicked words, cursing, or swearing. And Jacinta, little 8-9-year-old her, looked up and said, only for one word can send a soul to hell. And then she cried out, I am so sorry for sinners. Oh, if only I could let them see hell. If Our Lady lets you see hell, Jacinta told Lucia, tell everybody what hell is like, and they can escape it by not committing any sins. So many are falling into hell. So many. And then she said, why doesn't Our Lady show hell to sinners? If they saw it, they would never sin again, and they wouldn't have to go there. And just that little exchange between the two here, it really made me think, the way that we as Christians, as Catholics, carry ourselves in everything that we do, we don't have to just avoid sin, right? We should carry ourselves with a certain modesty and, and decorum, excuse me, and a certain reverence at all times, because, when you read the saints and you read how very little they tolerated and how much they didn't permit anything at all to be excused, we would certainly change our ways. And a lot of people, they come up with the excuse, myself included, I'm right there with them. It's very difficult in a very secular world. It's very difficult in a world where we're just flooded with this stuff and television and music and everything. But it's prevalent in our culture, and yet we should strive to be saints. We should not brush away their messages like, oh, that's for them and not for me, but really listen to what they have to say. Listen to how sensitive some of these saints were to a single word, to a single gesture. They didn't tolerate it. And I think if we really want to emulate them, if we want to be counted amongst the saints, if we want to join them in sharing the beatific vision, we should, to the best of our ability, try to live that holy life, that sanctity, that life of sanctity, and not just in our in avoiding sin, but in everything that we do during the day, in our thoughts, right, in our actions, in our gestures, and in what we share, and the images that we post and whatnot. It should all be for the glory of God, and we should be very well aware that Christ is always present, and he sees all. And with that, I wanted to end the show today. Just leave you with a little grain of thought. And again, this goes for myself as well, but really just being aware that the saints are there to intercede for us, and that God is always watching. So be pure, be holy, be Catholic, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening. Tune in every Monday at 9 Eastern for a brand new episode.
Make the world Catholic again.